and thank you for viewing this video, in which I will be talking about the troop choices from the Ork 7th Edition Codex as part 3 in my series of reviews. My name is Steve, this is the SDFnet 40k channel, and let us begin. Ork boys are the heart and soul of any warband. They charge into battle in great mass, crashing into the enemy like a green landslide, bellowing with the joy of battle. Mobs of orcs excel at close quarters fighting, where they can hack, bludgeon and stamp their foes into bloody ruin. The average orc is mean-tempered and exceptionally tough, more than compensating for his lack of intellect, and sporting a talent for violence. Though an orc can cause plenty of damage with his fists, his feet and his forehead, it takes a lot to separate him from one of his favourite choppers. When it comes to firearms, orcs love simplicity. They value noise and sheer weight of fire, though as long as a gun can double as a decent club, its owner is usually happy enough. Some greenskins can even get their hands on crude heavy weapons, which can cause absolute havoc. A squad of boys will cost you 60 points for 10 models, and they come armed with sluggers, choppers and stick bombs. They have Here We Go, Mob Rule and Furious Charge. For 10 points you may upgrade one orc to a Nob boss. The differences between their profiles are as follows. An orc boy is WS4, BS2, Strength 3, Toughness 4, 1 Wound, 2 Initiative, 2 Attacks, Leadership 7 and a 6-up save. Whereas a boss is Weapon Skill 4, BS2, Strength 4, Toughness 4, Wounds 2, 3 Initiative, 3 Attacks, 7 Leadership and again a 6-up save. You may take an additional 20 boys at 6 points per model, and for every 10 models, one orc may replace his weapon with a big shooter for 5 points, which has the profile of 36-inch range, Strength 5, AP 5, Assault 3, or a rocket launcher, again for 5 points, which is 24-inch range, Strength 8, AP 3, Assault 1. The entire mob may replace their sluggers with shooters, which are 18-inch range, Strength 4, AP 6, Assaults 2, for 1 point a model. And the entire mob may take heavy armour for 4 points a model. The unit can take a truck as a dedicated transport. Should you upgrade to a boss nob, this model gains the infantry character profile and may take items from the ranged weapons and or melee weapons lists. You may also take a boss pole for 5 points. Orc boys really are the core of any army list, unless you're taking Gretchen in order to attempt to bypass the troop section in order to build a themed list, but still play a bound army. Otherwise, Orc boys will feature in your army. Orc boys come in 2 flavours, and both do actually have merit. The first is your basic slugger chopper boy. The second is shooter boys. You can field either of those guys in one of 2 ways, either as foot-slogging blobs or mechanised. Before I discuss loadouts, let's talk knobs. Knobs, they're great and you always want them. Rule 1 with any Orc boy squad using any tactic is to take a knob. If you aren't running the list that I spoke about earlier when I discussed the war boss granting your boys fearless, you also probably are going to be wanting to take a boss pole with every squad. If you have the points, give them a boss pole anyway, so you can cushion the impact if you lose your war boss. Rule 2, in my opinion, is to give your knob a power claw, and do everything you can on the table to use the boys in the squad to protect the knob until he gets a chance to lay down a world of hurt. This gets expensive quickly, but gives you the answer to anything you're likely to see on the board, and with so many knobs running around, I found that my opponents can't keep up with the wave of hurt coming their way. You may take some losses, but I found it rare that my charge has been completely blunted, and some of your knobs will get through. The only reason I do not give a knob a claw is points limitations, in which case a big chopper will have to do, or if it's shooter boys, in which case you could make a case for some dagger. Between upgrading to a knob, giving him a claw and a boss pole, is dumping a lot of points into a single model, which you know I don't like doing. The knob is the only model in a mob of boys that matters, so forking out another 4 points for heavy armour possibly isn't a bad choice. Okay, slugger chopper boys. If you're putting them in trucks, you're limited to 11 boys and a knob. If you're foot slogging, you can and will need to expand your numbers. Where possible, never take minimum numbers of boys in your squads. Orcs die a lot, so you'll need to be able to absorb losses and still maintain combat efficiency. You can take up to 30 boys in a squad, which would be hilarious to see. However, this gets expensive on points when you multiply that 30 model squad by 6. Plus, it could get quite boring moving that many models. I found 20 to be a good working number. I found that taking rocket boys with slug and chopper boys can be good, as it allows you to go at heavier armoured things. You lose some attacks on a charge, but if you keep them at the back of your blob squad, they might not be able to make it into combat in the first round anyway. I would not take heavy armour for my regular boys. If they're in a truck, hopefully that will protect them. If they're foot slogging, weight of numbers is their defence. The cost of armour is 2/3 the cost of another boy, so I say just take a few extra boys. The alternate way of fielding boys is as shooters. Obviously, orc shooting isn't great, but they make up for it in weight of shots. If you're fielding shooter boys, I would say take a big shooter rather than rocket launchers. More dice help for suppression fire, and you won't be wanting to shoot anything that requires strength 8 rockets with these guys anyway. If you take your boys in a truck, you can do drive-by shootings, or a big blob can just rain down a shower of dice. Well, when you're rolling to hit at least. Keep in mind, however, that for a truck you can take 4 more boys, and when you're trying to scrape together as many dice as possible, a few extra might make a difference. One nice advantage is that all orc weapons on these guys are assault, so there's still that potential. In part 1 of this series, we talked about the different formations. If I were to take the previously discussed 6 troop choices, I would take 2 squads of 20 shooter boys with a knob and 2 big shooters, each to provide DACA support. I would then have 2 20 to 25 man boy squads with slugger choppers, with knobs, foot slogging and running their way across the board. Finally, I would have 2 slugger chopper squads with knobs in trucks. The intention would be to have 3 waves. The trucks fly up as quickly as possible to distract and provide an immediate threat that has to be dealt with. I would make sure that my opponent knows that there are claws in this squad, and if he doesn't kill them, then they're going to be toast. And, if I can, tie up any intended interception units. This will hopefully distract my opponent for the main 2 squads of boys. The trucks could manoeuvre once they've emptied their boys to try and block line of sight from the enemy's heavy guns. The 20-man squads would then hit home, hopefully doing some damage on the way in with a few pistol shots. Finally, the shooter boys will have been advancing and staying just outside of rapid fire range. Orc guns being assault profiles mean they'll be as good as they're going to be at any range. I can then use the shooter boys to charge in and clean up any leftovers or provide more bodies for a tar pit maneuver. Obviously, this tactic is intended to work as part of a multi-unit thrust rather than in a complete vacuum of orc boys alone. So we'll be seeing bikes and burner boys and all kinds of stuff flying up the board with these guys. Gretchen, or grots, flood across the battlefield in great squabbling mobs. Individually feeble and cowardly, grots can nevertheless prove surprisingly dangerous in large numbers. Herded squealing towards their foe by the irascible old bullies known as runt herds, the tiny greenskins can be made to fight tooth and claw for their pitiful lives. When forced to fight or die, a sizable mob of grots can overrun even a well-prepared foe, clawing and biting frantically as in their desperation to stay alive. Though not especially dangerous close up, the average Gretchen is more than capable of out-shooting and its orc master. This talent goes largely to waste, of course, as no self-respecting orc would let some runty grot strut about with a decent shooter. However, a massed volley of their so-called grot blasters can cause a surprising amount of bloodshed. A 10-man squad of Gretchen and 1 runt herd will cost you 35 points, and they have the stat line: a Gretchen of WS2, BS3, Strength 2, Toughness 2, Wounds 1, 2 Initiative, 1 Attack, Leadership 5, and no Armor save. A runt herd is Weapon Skill 4, Ballistic Skill 2, Strength 3, Toughness 4, 1 Wound, 2 Initiative, 2 Attacks, Leadership 7, and the standard Orc 6 up Armor save. The runt herd is an infantry character with the Here We Go and Furious Charge rules, as well as Mob rule. The runt herd comes armed with a slugger, stick bombs, and a grabber stick. A grabber stick is strength as user AP- with the throttle rule, which means when it's fighting in a challenge, it reduces the opponent's attacks by 1 to a minimum of 1. The front herd can take a squig hound that I covered in part 1 of this review series for 5 points, and replace his grabber stick with a grot prod for 5 points, which has the same profile as a grabber stick but replaces the throttle rule with high voltage, which allows the runt herd to replace all his melee attacks with a single strength as user times 2 attack to a maximum of strength 10. The Gretchen is armed with a Grot Blaster, which is range 12, strength 3, assault 1. You can take an additional 20 Gretchen at 3 points per model, but for every 10 Gretchen you must take another runt herd. Gretchen, for me, serve 2 purposes. They camp objectives, freeing my boys up from the duty, and they act as bubble wrap. They're good for both these purposes as they're cheap as chips and are actually better shooting in orcs. Their weapons are pea shooters, but it's hilarious to get that one kill on something that they had no business even scratching the paintwork of with a shot because, why not? They have no save, so be aware that they will always need to be placed in cover where possible. That's me done for now. I appreciate your taking the time to listen to me ramble on. I hope you enjoyed this content and welcome your constructive feedback and discussion in the comments below. If you like this video, hit like. If you like the content, hit subscribe. Both help me know what's working. I have been Steve, this has been the SDFnet 40k channel, and I will see you next time. The Emperor protects.